This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for Avoid the Maze because life is the maze. There's no direct line from here to wherever you're going. The journey has twists, turns, and throws obstacles in your way. But at each intersection, we have choices. And when we walk with mindfulness, we become more attuned to our surroundings. And the unexpected opportunities that rise with each step, they can be wondrous. You don't have to navigate the path alone. There are others just like you staring at that blank wall and wondering which direction to take. This podcast is a space for shared experiences because sometimes a story you hear may echo your own, and that moment of connection may be exactly what you need. My guest today is Yana Glover, and she's an unusual coach as far as I'm concerned because she helps kids navigate through the maze. You know, as a parent, sometimes we just assume that, well, the instructions we're giving our kids and what they're hearing at school is providing a path for them and they're okay. The reality of it is something that I read in your bio is that sometimes we have all these hidden agendas in our own heads as kids, and we don't know how to share them, especially with our parents. Because I know when I tried, my mother would say, "Oh, don't worry, you're going to grow up, you're going to be fine." And it was like, "Well, why aren't I fine now?" So, Yana, welcome to Avoid the Maze and give us a little background.
Yes, and thank you for that warm introduction. And even the intro to your podcast was just like totally amazing. So
Thank
I loved
you.
it. Oh yeah, so I am a children's confidence coach. And so the main thing that I do is help children with critical thinking skills, protecting their imagination, protecting their innocence, which I believe there is a war on innocence right now. So I like to say like I'm on the front lines to protect them. And I do that mainly through fun and play and just like find innovative and creative ways to help children discover themselves, but also build confidence, critical thinking skills, imagination, and all the things that I feel like are necessary to like beat this maze that we call life.
So, what made you decide it had to have been something that all of a sudden triggered you? Because I'm sure when you were a
Mhm.
young kid, you didn't say, "Oh, I'm going to be a coach someday."
Right.
In fact, coaching has really grown in acceptance in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it basically was, you're going to see a therapist, you're going to see a psychologist, you're going to see a doctor. Um,
Mhm.
Coaching was for something for Little League Baseball. So,
Fair.
so how did you get on this path?
Yeah, so actually I started like coaching children um because I found OutSchool. So that's like basically like an Etsy for teachers and coaches and things like that. So I put out like a class just to test and see like how is this gonna work? And I ended up having such a bond with the children. I'm like, how do I continue this along the way? And it's funny you mentioned like childhood because from a child, I always told myself like I was going to be who I wish I had to the next generation or to someone else. And so I hadn't at that time realized that it was going to be like to children virtually. But I always, the front goal in my mind was to be who I wish I had, not to turn it into like, oh, I had a horrible upbringing or anything like that, because that wouldn't be the truth. But there definitely were gaps in like emotional intelligence and learning how to balance how I felt about things and learning how to like just balance emotion in general that I didn't necessarily have because my parents were young and they were just, living in the maze, work and feelings kind of come secondary because when you're trying to survive and make sure that things are what they need to be, then the emotions kind of come second. So I wanted to kind of bridge that gap for the children and be that person that's like a big sister. And I am a big sister and I take that role very seriously because I was the oldest as well. So in my brain, a big sister is the mediator sometimes between you and your parents. They're the ones that you can go to if you don't feel comfortable sharing something with your parent or guardian or grandparent, whoever. And so they kind of bridge that gap. But then I kind of added on to that, okay, well, to me, a key to breaking out of the maze or just getting out of that mundane way of thinking is like confidence. And confidence doesn't mean you're going to not be scared or nervous, but it means that you still have the ability to have courage even in those moments. So from a young age, I knew I wanted to be something like that, but I didn't realize what it would turn into until recently.
So being one of 12,
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah. So, isn't that what you said? You were one of 12 children?
No,
Oh, I'm
no, not
sorry.
me.
Oh, so how many kids were in your family?
So, my parents are divorced. So, my mom has three children, and I'm the oldest. And then my dad has like three children, but he's been married multiple times. So, it's kind of like more like sticky. Like, we have like our step siblings and like siblings that weren't technically step siblings on
Right.
that side. So, yeah, definitely not 12, but
But
relatively close
right.
when you add everybody together.
But you got to see younger siblings, all different personalities, all getting through that maze differently.
Correct.
And I bring this up a lot. When I was growing up, I thought I was the only one who wanted to be somebody else,
Mm,
between magazines and, friends. I want her hair. I want her eyes. I want to wear that
mm,
outfit. I want my parents to do X for me. And I didn't realize that if I could have just captured who I was,
mm. Yeah.
what a different life that would be. But in the back of my mind, I was never satisfied with who I was.
Yeah.
And yet, when I go back and I talk to people who knew me back then, they act like, really? You surely showed, you were just as confident as I was or the next person. And it was like, well, I guess I was wearing a mask and didn't even realize it.
Mm, mm,
But the way I thought when I was growing up really, in some ways, hurt me as I became a young adult. And it wasn't
mm.
until I got into therapy and coaching that I realized I'm not the only one who thinks this way.
Nope.
So, what did you see amongst your siblings as the big sister?
So I saw more, so not necessarily from the physical standpoint, but that is something I'm seeing with my students specifically because of like social media and like the pressures to be kind of perfect and like what they see on the internet is not even reality. Like these celebrities and TikTok influencers, we'll just bundle them into celebrities that they see like they've had plastic surgery, they're using filters, they're using all types of things and presenting it as if that's who they are. So I'm seeing that a lot with children in general. But from with my siblings, I saw just like a gap in terms of emotional intelligence. Like, why am I feeling the way that I feel? Why am I upset? Why am I angry? And like, yeah, I'm taking it out on person X, but is person X who I'm really upset about with? Or is it because I feel unheard in another space? Or is it because I'm feeling unseen in another space? And I think like for parents and guardians, grandparents, whoever is raising the child, it can feel like, oh, you might be bad, quote unquote, for not recognizing these things. But there's so many nuances. And when you are the head of the household and you're dealing with all of these other stresses outside of your own child's feelings, sometimes what they feel can be put on the back burner. And it doesn't mean you're bad or they're doing it on purpose, but like children have so many emotions and so many feelings that it's hard while you're trying to make sure the bills are paid and mortgage, like they have lights on and whatever is going on in your situation. Even if you have all of that, you still want to live your life too. So there are gaps that still happen with children. And it's like, okay, well, why am I upset about this? why am I taking my anger out on my younger sibling instead of analyzing, okay, I'm not mad at my younger sibling. I'm mad at my parent or guardian or grandparent because they didn't see something. And so I don't have the ability and the power to address it with them. So I'm going to take it out on someone else. And even adults do that where like sometimes they're unhappy in their job or whatever. And instead of taking it out on their boss who's making them upset, they're taking it out on their children. So children kind of do the same thing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone is bad or good, but there are those gaps that still exist. And there it takes a village to raise a child. So I'm just trying to be part of that village. So like I said, I saw more of the emotional intelligence piece that was a gap. And so I just seek to try to like get in there and just help parents and guardians, help my parents and as well, just, make sure that we have a strong village because children are complex and the world that our parents and grandparents grew up in, the world that I grew up in, is very, very different from the world that these children are growing up in. So they need as much of a village and support system as possible to let them know, like, you are created the way you are for a reason and you're perfect just the way you are. Even if you want to like tweak some things, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything wrong with you. If you want to become better and you're whatever you define that as, fine. But you're still wonderful and amazing, just who you are, period.
Exactly. It's interesting because I have two sons. They're 15 years apart, two
Oh,
different sons. Okay.
fair,
So
fair.
um, my husband helped raise my older son for about 4 years.
Hmm.
And it's interesting how much in common they had with each other and how they related to each other. I
Hmm.
had a hard time with that because of my ex-husband, and I kept
Mm.
seeing my ex in my child. And
Mm.
so there were times that I had to just turn things over to my current husband and just say, I don't know how to talk to him. I don't know how to.
Right.
But then when we had our son together, um, the interesting part is that my husband had certain expectations that if he likes something, of course his son should like it. His
Mm.
stepson likes it. Why doesn't his natural born son like it?
Right.
Or, you know, I did this, so why doesn't he do this? And so many times I've had to sit him down and say, because he's an individual,
Yeah.
you didn't do things the same way your dad did or your mom.
Yeah.
And you can't expect it of him. And my youngest is 34 now. I,
Oh,
I
wow.
take that back. He was 35 yesterday. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
happy birthday.
But we were visiting him this weekend, and every once in a while, my husband would say to me, why does he have to do that? And I'd look at him and go, because that's who he is.
Mm.
That's what he does. And
Yeah.
maybe if we had had someone like you when he was growing up that would have, instilled in him, it's okay. You can do these things. And instilled in us, hey, it's all right. That's his personality. He's not doing anything to hurt anybody.
Right.
He's doing things differently. So, what are some of the tools you use in your coaching?
Yeah, so I like to be wherever the children are. So I have like Roblox clubs because the children love Roblox, but just like the children love Roblox, I wish I wouldn't have to say this, but it's true. The people who love to take advantage of children also love Roblox too. So I think parents and guardians, grandparents, whoever, really, really, really can underestimate the dangers possibly of Roblox because at least if they're at the park, you're contending with your neighbors and anyone that's at the park. But on Roblox, you're contending against like everybody that has access to the internet and a smart device, whether that's a phone, a laptop, computer, whatever. So I have Roblox clubs so we can keep them safe and they can still be children and play Roblox. I have a online courses as well for children who can't access the live clubs because those are like clubs where there's other children. We just play and just totally children vibe out. Like I'm like Peter Pan in that aspect, except I don't kidnap little kids. I keep them where they are. We just play games together. And then I also have workbooks. I'm coming out with new ones each every so often, and animated series. So I have like options at every price point. So whether you have $0 to add to your child's self-development or you have hundreds of dollars to add, there's something for everybody because every child, I believe, deserves to feel seen, safe, and heard. And so I seek to create a full ecosystem to help children in all spaces, whether you're rich or you're living below the poverty line, you can still get access to care that in the same level of care and guidance and things. So I really work to try to get them in every aspect. And while I would prefer that they spend a little bit less time on Roblox, that is the most popular option. So I'm there as well. But, I'm trying to get them to do more things with their imagination, take hold of being a child because you're only a child for like a little bit of time. And then you get your whole life to be an adult. So all that to say, I have an ecosystem where I meet children where they are, but I also try to find places where I want them to be like more reading, critical thinking skills, imagination with the workbooks. And then in the membership, I have like art club with Fred, who's like a little puppet. So the younger kids love that. Study music, just like anything I can think of that children could use to become better and just a little bit more centered. I try to create and be there for them.
And it's interesting because, again, I'm in my 70s. So growing up, we
Oh,
didn't
wow.
have a lot of these things going on. Um,
Hmm.
and even in elementary school, we didn't have a lot of activities after school
Oh,
in those
wow.
days because most moms were, stay-at-home moms. So
Oh,
school
yeah.
let out, mom was really waiting by the side door of the school. She took you home and
Hmm.
gave you cookies and milk and, you know,
Oh,
maybe told you to go outside and play. And that's what we
right.
did. We didn't have computers back in those days. But as I was started raising my boys,
Hmm.
again, I have a 35-year-old and a 50-year-old. And when the 50-year-old was a young kid, I was working full time. And so
Right.
I was dependent on after school care for him. And
Hmm.
I had to identify, is this a good home for him to be in after school? What are they doing? I was very lucky. I found after school care where the mothers who ran it, they wanted the kids to have reading and music and playtime. And not that it was structured, but it was structured enough that my son, never was bored, but always came home and could tell me something he learned. And then when my youngest son got to that stage, um, he was in an after school program, and it was structured. And for him, he needed that structure. And but yet I felt like I was missing out on so much because I was dropping him off at school at 7 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't picking him up till 6 o'clock in the evening. Then I had to come home and make dinner. And so I understand parents out there that it's difficult today because we put our
Hmm.
kids in front of the computer, and a lot of times we want to assume they're using the right programs,
Hmm.
and we have to teach them. And most parents don't know how to teach safety on the internet.
Yeah.
So is it part of your program too that you teach the parents how to keep their kids safe?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point because, like, Roblox, for example, was supposed to be, and I thought up until recently that it was just a program for children. Like, who else is going to be on Roblox other than children? But unfortunately, that is not the case because anybody that has access to the internet can create a Roblox account. And so they can say, oh, I'm 8 years old. You can set up an account as an 8 year old, but you can really be like, add any number in front of the eight. You can be
Yeah.
that age and on and on. So I think that it's really important that parents and guardians recognize that you're up against a whole new world. Like, I think that was like a Little Mermaid, like a whole new world
Yeah.
or whatever. And so you really are up against a completely different landscape. And so while we're in the clubs, I do like tell the children, like, because sometimes we have to play in the public server. Typically, we play in our private server. Like 80% of the time, it's just me and whoever the children are that sign up. But there are some game modes, specifically in Roblox, where we can't just play in the private server because we don't have enough people to play the games or the games don't allow for it. So when we're in those public servers, they'll be like, Coach Yana, like such and such wants to be my friend. I'm like, say no. Say no. You don't know that person. You don't know who that is. And so they'll say no. And then the older children who have been with me for like months now will be like, yeah, I only, and like when the older kids do it, then it's cool. So the older kids will say like, oh yeah, well, I only accept people I know. So that it pressures the younger children to do the same. But something that I have noticed specifically with the younger kids is like they will reveal so much personal information about themselves. And in our clubs, it's relatively okay. But like I typically like when children are honorary, I don't discipline them because whatever, it's fine. The only time that they will hear the bass in my voice, as they say, is like when they share personal information. Because children, I've had multiple times, specifically the younger children, they'll say what school they go to. They'll share their street address, their street name, their city. Like they'll share, like if you share your state with the group, it's fine because like whatever, it's your state. But like there have been times where children have shared their address, their school name. And so I've had to kind of like pause the club for a little bit and say, hey, before you finish that story, don't share this. And I have to put the base because since I use it so sparingly, they realize like if Coach Yana is doing this, it's because she means something. And children are so innocent that they just assume everybody is as innocent as they are. But if you put Roblox in any type of crime that you can think of, I'm sure you'll find like a lot of posts. And that's just what was reported. But children are so innocent that they just believe everybody is innocent. So I try not to scare them into it. So I don't like go above my boundaries and say, hey, you might be talking to X, Y, and Z, but I just make it very clear, like, well, you're in a club, like, don't share this stuff. Like, I make it very, very serious. And so I am working on more of like a structured course. I'll probably put some YouTube videos up as well about like internet safety. But like, if you have to like even watch a relatively quote unquote scary movie and tell your child that when they're playing a video game or whatever, that like this character from the movie is also playing, oh, don't share personal advice. You have to do what you have to do to meet children where they are. And if you don't, unfortunately, there might not even be a way for you to realize what they're sharing because Roblox does, and it's not just Roblox. So I don't want to like pinpoint Roblox. It's a multiple games, but like they have a chat feature and they are very mindful of what you put in the chat. However, you can also talk to people on Roblox. So you can take the microphone off, and there's no way to monitor what people are saying because it's happening so fast. So just because they have a chat feature and they're monitoring what's typed, they're not monitoring what's said. So there could be someone who's pretending to be 8 talking to your child, and they might be 58 or 68 or 48 or 18, either
Right.
way. And so I'm very, very clear on that. And now it's become the cool thing in the clubs to be safe. So like when I do have to lightly reprimand or like even I go back and tell the parents, guardians, grandparents, like, hey, such and such said da da da. The older children also will be like, yeah, I only friend people in our club, and it becomes the cool thing to be private. So I really try to keep the innocence of the children because I really want them to stay children, but also highlight like, hey, we're friends in this club, but that's about it. We're not friends with these other people because we don't know who they are and we don't know their intentions either.
Well, and I love that you stress that because, again, I grew up in the 50s and 60s. And one of the first things we were taught was this is your phone number, keep
Hmm.
repeating it. And if you ever get lost, tell a stranger, call my mother at whatever the
Hmm.
number is, or know your address so somebody can bring you home. So we did live in an age of innocence, even though I knew
Right.
there was crime and things going on. For the most part, You could trust the people around you. And I see that as more of us have aged and are on the internet, we sometimes forget that. We get a phone call
Mm,
and somebody says, you know, this is your neighborhood grocer calling you, and we have a special going on today. And, we're looking at what you've bought in the last month, and you would like this. So, can we send it out to you? What's your address? And
mm,
there are people that think, well, isn't this wonderful? This
yeah,
reminds me of the old days. People are being friendly, people are offering me things. And we have to learn to question that in the back of our mind. If we really don't know who this phone call is coming from, who I'm really chatting with,
yeah,
then you know what? It's best to separate yourself from that and then reach out to the people that you do know and
exactly.
stay in that safe zone. And again, I think, I'm sure most parents are keeping their kids safe, but there's that occasional parent who is so busy and their kid comes to them and says, "Oh, mom, I'm talking to Sally, in chat, and Sally wants my address so I can come over and play." And
Hmm.
sometimes without thinking, parents are going, "Okay." And then after they say, "Okay," they realize they never should have said that.
Yeah.
So you have things on your website then that can help keep our kids safe.
Yeah, so it's mainly in the interaction. So I'm working on because as I'm working, because this is still relatively new. I started in February 2024 with like really coaching children. And like the more that I'm interacting with them, the more the glaring, like, oh, they're like super innocent.
Yeah.
So you already know like children are innocent, but like the amount of times where I've had to message parents and guardians, grandparents, like, hey, such and such shared the school that they go to, or their street address or their street name or their exact home location. Like it started to realize like, oh, like this isn't just something that I need to share with my students specifically. So I'm working on like just general internet safety. So depending on where you get to the site, it might not be there yet. But like the content for the parents, I do really, really highlight that. But I'm still working on getting for like the children for the free space, like, hey, these are just some common grounds. Like in general, just don't share this
Yeah.
information because children, like I said, they're so innocent. And like even as adults, sometimes we overshare with people. There's so many times where there's someone I'm talking to and I'm like, oh man, I forgot who I was talking to. I wish I didn't share this particular part of detail. And like we do that as adults. So if you amplify that times 100, that's what your child is doing. And they want to feel cool. So sometimes it comes out in casual conversation where they're like, oh, yeah, I just want to tell you this story. And they're like, Coach Yana, can I share a story? I'm like, sure. What's the story? And they're like, well, when I was at X, Y, and Z elementary school, and I have to say, wait a minute, wait a minute. You can share your story, but like, let's not share that. And they don't even realize it. So sometimes it's not even that they're like just talking to that person. They might literally just be talking. So it's so important that all of us are like harping on, even if they're too young to understand predators, just like, and I know this is crazy, but like have them watch a scary movie that's age appropriate and say, this monster is also on Roblox. This monster is also on the game. And at least then they'll have a figure that's safe enough for them to realize, like, if they watch Silver Bullet, they will never share their address to anybody because that movie is like just scary enough without being gory. But just like finding innovative ways to like really show them like this is why you don't want to share X, Y, and Z because you could share it with a monster and to like them it's like oh it's just a werewolf but to you it's like no this could be life changing for your child.
Sounds great. So, how can my listeners find you? Um, because I don't think there's a lot of individuals out there doing what you're doing right now. And
Mm.
because of the internet, they could come from any place. So, how can
Yeah.
we find you?
Yeah, so I am the laptop life coach on all platforms and then on website would just literally be the laptoplifecoach.com. And I'm available via email. You can send me an Instagram DM. Email is definitely the easiest, but I can also do like DMs on whatever platform you prefer.
That is absolutely wonderful. And we're going to have all that in the show notes. So there's no reason why you can't find Coach Yana. Um, as I said to her before we went live, I wish I had had someone like you when my boys were growing up, um, because with my oldest son, I was a very young mom, and I thought I knew everything by watching my mother and by babysitting. And I thought, oh, I've got the world, and I knew nothing. Um, and then when my youngest was born 15 years later, I thought, oh, I really got this. I
Mm.
know the mistakes I made the last time. And no, I didn't really have it. But what I want parents to understand is we need to listen to our kids.
Hmm.
And that's the one thing that I did with both of my sons. Um, Never told them what to think. Sometimes I had to try to maneuver them a little bit so that they could be safer, but I never told them, you can't think that, because nobody can stop my brain from thinking certain things. We can try to calm each other down. So, with that, I want to thank you for joining us today. And we're going to share this on social media, and we will be glad to have our listeners follow you. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.